So the way that I work is very, very unique and very different. It is, instead of making you feel incredible, which is always my goal, I want you to feel good. I'm not screaming at you during my keynote, right? But I do give you 3 really, really clear tactics, no matter what it is I'm doing, that you can walk away and implement today to change your business and change your life. We just have to actually do the due diligence and do the work. What I'll tell you is I have found success, and I have always led through a level of authenticity, right? I am unapologetic. I am highly professional, but at the same time, I have dedicated my life to representing people who need representation. I have built my career and built my business on one guiding philosophy, and it's the fact that lighting someone else's candle doesn't extinguish my own. I firmly believe that by helping someone, by spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes with them, and if that pushes them in the right direction for their business, not even changes their life dramatically, but pushes them in the right direction, reduces overwhelm potentially, it's time well spent.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Relentless Goal Achievers podcast. I'm your host, Eric Konovalov, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today, because today I got a really special guest, and we're going to be talking about the value of leveraging a leader's personal profile to grow their brands. My guest today is Tyler Mount, industry-leading digital strategy expert and the owner of Henry Street Creative. Tyler, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Eric. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get into the whole digital marketing space?
Well, look, it was completely accidental. My career was exclusively in the arts, theater, Broadway, and I had a successful career on Broadway, both as a stage manager, but most importantly as a content creator. This was the advent of Instagram. This was the advent of Snapchat, and really what we now consider influencer culture. So I was working on Broadway at the time. I had a lot of friends, obviously, in the Broadway community. And instead of waiting for permission, meaning instead of waiting for a director or another stage manager or a producer to call me and give me a position, I said, you know what, I'm going to stop waiting. I'm going to stop waiting and start creating my own work. And so what I did completely by accident was create a vlog on YouTube. This was before this was popular, really. And it involves me and a Broadway celebrity sitting on my real couch in my real living room in my small New York City studio and having a good time, right? I would ask a few questions. We'd play a game. We'd drink a bottle of wine while we were sitting on the couch. And ultimately, it accidentally really started to take off. I changed my life quite literally overnight by creating this series. And it really launched me into, what I'll say is like the public eye of Broadway for a time period. I was one of the first influencers on Broadway. I'm obviously no longer, but it was a really, really fantastic and rewarding experience. I got to live the dream that I had for myself from a young age in small town Texas. And it was a really, really great experience. That's where I really started to understand the power of personal brand. This is where I started to understand that there was something here in terms of digital marketing. From there, I was asked to join the team at Playbill, the Broadway legacy brand, and create video content for them, which, was an absolute dream job for me. I couldn't have possibly imagined that one day I would work at this organization. And then from there, the rest is history. I transitioned from corporate environment to corporate environment, whether that was NBC Universal to large real estate development firms, ultimately culminating with me working on the 2020 presidential campaign. And that really launched my career, specifically owning my own business. That is what we now know as Henry Street Creative. And I help Fortune 100, Fortune 500 CEOs, thought leaders, specifically and oftentimes in the real estate industry, really change their brand and change their lives accordingly.
Why Henry Street Creative? Like, where is Henry Street?
So Henry Street is a very popular street in Brooklyn, New York. It's where we filmed our first commercial. And if you look very carefully right here, my 70-pound golden doodle is Henry. So it worked out perfectly. He's the mascot. He sits behind me all day. He looks like a rug, but he's back there. So that's where Henry Street Creative came from. And we've gone forward with that ever since.
Man, that's really cool. So you had a bunch of different experiences in various different industries. I think that sets you up kind of for success. If you're taking expertise from what you learned everywhere and bringing them into kind of through this new lens of digital marketing, how has that shaped what you do? Like, would you say what you guys do is pretty unique?
Yeah, I mean, there are a million marketing firms. There are a million marketing agencies. Us sitting in the marketing space is not unique at all. Our approach, and my approach certainly is, everyone is always concerned about the product, right? What does my product do? What am I selling? What do I stand for? Right? Yeah, it's a great opportunity being able to have multiple lenses and multiple vantage points. What we do isn't necessarily unique. There are a million marketing agencies. There are a million marketing firms, right? But what I really want to stress is the lens in which we market is very unique. Everyone is typically concerned about the product. What does the product do? I'm a real estate agent. I sell real estate. I'm a socks salesperson. I sell socks. When in reality, you are the product. And we're getting into a world where the majority of people are going to be independent contractors. We're getting into a world where the majority of people are going to be salespeople, whether they know it, like it, or want to do it. Ultimately, by focusing on the leader, the figurehead who is running the organization, actually, we can move the needle of business much quicker and much more efficiently.
How big is your team?
So it's funny, we have ebbed and flowed. We have scaled significantly. At one point, I was at 35 full-time employees after having the company for 6 months. And then what we really started to do is realize, okay, we can have a larger staff of contractors who can be specialists in specific areas instead of trying to hire generalists. So ultimately, to answer your question, over the past 2 years, we've made significant changes in terms of how we run the company and frankly, what level of service we can provide our clients. So now I have 3 full-time employees, which has been a welcome change. And we have a long list of staff, whether they're graphic designers, newsletter syndicators, developers, social media managers, who can actually run the day-to-day operations for our clients in a very curated and specific breakdown.
Yeah, I love that. Makes you very nimble by doing that. I like that model as well. So there's a video you did on Instagram, and it might be like the first one that pops up. I don't know if you've pinned it or not. There's actually a couple I want to talk to you about, but this one you're talking about people going to events, and you're like, yeah, people go to like Tony Robbins seminar or whatever, and they get all pumped up, and then they leave. They're inspired. They don't know what to do. That's not what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna give you 3 things that if you implement them in the next hour, your whole business changes. And then the video goes out, and I'm like, no, give me the 3 things. I was like, what are the 3 things?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, that's why I'm here. I say this all the time. I'm very open about it. I speak at marketing conferences every month, right? It's inevitable. It's what I do. I love speaking at public events. Okay. I hate marketing events. And the reason I hate marketing events is because they're designed oftentimes to make people in the moment feel really, really good and jazzed and excited and a fire lit underneath them. And then they leave and they go, what the hell did I just learn? And what am I actually implementing in my business? Right? That isn't an effective use of time, energy, or resources. I work a little differently. There is nothing wrong with Tony Robbins. He has built a multi-million dollar empire off making people feel good, right? And he produces real results. I'm not here to question that. He's the real deal. However, when we talk about this ethereal, macro, high level type of execution, people leave wondering what they actually need to do. And oftentimes this creates substantial and compounded overwhelm in the weeks to follow because they are excited to change, but they don't know how to do it. So the way that I work is very, very unique and very different. It is, instead of making you feel incredible, which is always my goal, I want you to feel good. I'm not screaming at you during my keynote, right? But I do give you 3 really, really clear tactics, no matter what it is I'm doing. Okay, that you can walk away and implement today to change your business and change your life. The Instagram that you were talking about, I was doing a keynote regarding LinkedIn, right? And my 3, I can tell you the answer. I know you've been wondering, Eric.
Yes.
The 3 things that we need to do today on LinkedIn to change our lives are: we need to add 20 people a day in our niche who are the people that we want to be working with. For me, it's real estate agents, So I'm going to add 20 real estate agents a day on LinkedIn. Number two, I need to be posting content at least 3 times a week on this platform. So I'm going to be posting content on LinkedIn. And then number three, the third thing I do is I connect with everyone that connects with me. If you accept my friend request, I'm going to send you a message, not to do business with you, but to get to know you and build a relationship with you. Those are the 3 things that you need to do on LinkedIn today to change your life. And guess what? 98% of the people listening will never even log into LinkedIn. And I've given you the tools to change your business by 30, 40, 50% month over month. We just have to actually do the due diligence and do the work. But there you go. That's Pandora's box. That's the secret.
Boring. No, I'm kidding.
Right?
That was really good.
I hear you.
Well, there's something you said that's key, and I want to clarify something, right? Number one, you said connect with people that are in your niche. Mm-hmm. And I think I always tell people to do that. I actually went through it. At one point I had, I don't know, maybe 5,000 something connections. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were people that will never, ever do business with me. I deleted them. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, as long as you have over 500 on LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. It just says 500 plus. But the way I believe it is, and maybe I learned this somewhere, is if you have a variety of a bunch of different people, let's look at that as a pie. When you post, LinkedIn just says, we're going to show this to a certain minor percent of your audience. And if they like it and if they start commenting, we'll spread it and show it to a bigger piece of your pie. Mm-hmm. And so is that one of the reasons why you only want to have connections that could potentially be your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, we want to ensure that your content is going to resonate with everyone you follow. For that exact reason, the algorithm will reward you for 30% of your followers liking something versus 1% of your followers liking something. Mm-hmm. But then, most importantly, beyond that, I'm all about efficiency, right? If I can only add 100 people a week, why am I ever going to add a person that is probably not going to transact with me? So that also allows me to gear my content towards them effectively as well. And what I mean by that is, okay, I'm going to post a lot of personal brand, business building, real estate related content, let's say. I don't want to add CPAs, right? Because they're not going to resonate with that content. They're not going to engage. And consequently, what business am I ever going to possibly gain from them? Instead, if I focus on my niche, which let's say in this fake scenario is real estate agents, then I know that not only my content needs to resonate with this specific niche, but I know that they're going to engage with it more often. And it really allows me to focus my business in a way that being really general doesn't allow for growth.
Mm. So what is your niche?
So, frankly, I would say my niche through my experience has been very, very broad historically. I've worked at the highest echelons of multiple industries, whether it is everything from entertainment and arts to real estate and development to pharmaceutical to lifestyle and hospitality to food and beverage. I've worked with some really fantastic brands, publicly traded, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 brands in these spaces. What I will say right now, my niche is very, very clearly real estate. It's where I specialize. I've branded some of the biggest brokers, the biggest brokerages on earth. I've done over $7 billion in new development in my lifetime portfolio. And consequently, it's where I feel most comfortable. Is it where I feel most challenged? No, but that's kind of a good thing. That's why people come to me, because I don't find it that challenging. I would love to do, things outside of that vertical, but where I really, really, really focus and specialize is independent real estate agents, brokerages, and developers.
You got Ryan Serhant somewhere in New York, in Manhattan.
Yeah, I do have Ryan. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of your clients?
Yeah, I've worked with Ryan since basically day one of Serhant Ventures, which is his training methodology program.
Yeah,
I've been there since realistically day one. I was their first strategy hire, and I've been there ever since.
What a small world. My buddy Jeff from Maryland, he's been on my podcast. He's a good friend with Ryan, and I see him doing. Yeah, Jeff Martin. Jeff.
I know Jeff very, very well. We keynote together. We're working on a little project together.
Get out of here, man. I know Jeff from the gym. I did sales training for his team when he was doing the recruiting stuff. Yeah. And he's probably my third or fourth guest on the podcast when I started 4 years ago.
It's a small world, right? I know Jeff very, very, very well. we have a signed contract with him. We're working on a little project.
Tell him Eric said what's up. He
Oh,
usually comes down to Naples, doesn't visit me in Sarasota.
Oh, I love that.
Tyler, so the second video, and I want to talk to you about personal branding. The second video that I saw was you talking about a lawsuit where you got $180,000, right? And I'm like, at first I'm like, okay, on one hand, I'm applauding you for being so open about what's going on with your business. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you would have been that open if you had to pay the $180,000.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, I'm like, is this a risky move? Like, would other companies now kind of put a red X on you saying, hey, if something goes awry, this guy's going to blast us everywhere. Let's not, do business with him. Have you considered that?
Yeah, of course I've considered that. What I'll tell you is I have found success, and I have always led through a level of authenticity, right? Mm. I am unapologetic. I am highly professional, but at the same time, I have dedicated my life to representing people who need representation. What I mean by that is I'm not talking about like the underrepresented, like, a certain type of person. I'm talking about, I work with people who want to foster their brand. I have a fiduciary and an ethical responsibility to these people, and I've dedicated my life to it. And so whenever I have the opportunity to share something that is private and vulnerable, but legally permissible, I'll do it, right? When I tell you that this lawsuit, which is now very public, I didn't share anything private. Whenever I shared this, what I wanted to stress is that like everyone, no matter what you see on Instagram, is going through things. This organization decimated financially my business, and they decimated by hiring me after they couldn't hire or pay the previous vendor and they quit. And after I quit for lack of payment, they hired another person that they couldn't pay. They quite literally stole my intellectual property that they didn't pay for. They put it on their website. They ran it indirectly in the back of taxi cabs. And they were profiting off of the work my team did that I had to pay my team to do, right? I had to take out personal loans. And these individuals never showed up in court. They never responded. They never took responsibility. They never showed up in court. And consequently, I was, via a default judgment, awarded that $180,000. Now, this was after 18 months of me trying to come to the table and settle with them and do the right thing. And I said, I'm a marketer. And in the United States, I have the ability to educate consumers, right? And I think it's my responsibility that they were at the time still operating. They were at least getting income off of our work. And I had the best scenario. There are smaller companies who were decimated. It wasn't just me. It's one of, now we know 20 plus vendors. Since that Instagram went out, we've had countless publications come to us. We have a very, very large publication currently writing an op-ed about it. And it finally got them to reply to me. And obviously they deny all the allegations, but I have all the proof. I have all the invoices, everything like that. I say all of that to be like, yes, I thought about this, but I'm really blunt and I'm really authentic with all of my clients. You have nothing to worry about if you pay me and we adhere to the contract. The same way I have to adhere to the contract and provide you the resources I promise you, right? Unless you're planning on stealing services from me and me filming television commercials for you and you're not paying for them, you have nothing to worry about, right? And if a client doesn't want to work with me because I'm holding my clients to a standard of excellence and contractual legalities, then we don't want to work with you in the first place anyway, right? But I haven't seen a decrease in business. I've actually seen an increase. So
yeah, no, I love it. I mean, you want to be controversial, and that's pretty much, I like it. You are who you are, and you went out there and you said what you said. That's pretty cool. But you blasted them. I mean, you had everybody, their leaders' pictures and names. Yeah. And guys, go to Tyler Mount on Instagram and just scroll through definitely check this out. It's one of those videos that you just want to watch because it's so interesting. And if you're in New York, in Manhattan, and you're about to do business with this company, probably could be a good idea that, to know what they're up to in their past, right? So Tyler, help me understand this whole thing about the leader's brand, right? You talk a lot about that. People who are not entrepreneurs, people who are maybe employees, should they be worrying or should they be trying to establish their own brand?
The answer is without question, absolutely yes. Whether you are an entry-level employee at a large conglomerate, let's say like NBC Universal with tens of thousands, right, of employees, or if you are starting your own entrepreneurial venture, leveraging your personal brand will impact positively your career trajectory for the rest of your life, right? And what I mean by that is quite simple. If you are an analyst at NBC and you start to build your personal brand about your love of, I don't know, digital analytics and what you're doing in your free time, and you start to build a following and you start to have people know you, what you stand for, and then guess what? Your colleagues are going to follow you, your bosses are going to follow you. They're starting to understand who you are and what makes you tick. From there, you become more valuable to the organization. I swear to you, I see it happen every day. You're more likely to get that promotion. You're more likely to get that raise. You're more likely to even be put on that project that will set you up for success in the future for that raise. From there, let's say you're a solo venture entrepreneur, right? I want to ensure that the products you're working on today isn't just successful. I want to make sure everything you touch is successful. So building that personal brand and ensuring that the common denominator, which is you across what you're doing today and what you're going to do in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years is gold as well, is really, really important. And the common denominator is you. So that's what we really, really focus on, whether you are entry level at a large organization or you're an entrepreneur and solo. That's really, really important to focus on the personal brand.
How do you help people overcome imposter syndrome?
Well, look, imposter syndrome is a reality of what we do. Half of my day is spent me being like, am I really qualified to do this? And then I see someone cry because I changed their life. I'm like, yep, I got it, right? The same way you probably think, who do I think I am to be a podcast host? The answer is you do. You have a podcast, you're good at it, and you have the ability and should have the ability to share your gifts with the world, right?
Well, we're special. I'm not talking about guys like us. Like, we don't even...
Right? We're one of a kind. We're talking about normal people, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, what I want to get at is everyone has a superpower. And I truly believe that. My job is to find it, flex it, and ignite it. And once we find out what that is, and we own the fact that us being authentic can drive business, I really start to see this level of imposter syndrome start to decrease. Additionally, what's important to note is that the more that I show up in this space, even if I'm uncomfortable, and the more I do the work and the more times I show up in front of the camera on Instagram, or the more times I help a client or more times I go out of my comfort zone, the less of an issue that becomes, and imposter syndrome starts to decrease. That's how I really focus on it. It's by trial and error and repetition. And then you start to realize, oh, no, I deserve to be in this space. I'm worthy, and I'm going to do what it takes to move forward.
Man, you just gave me like an aha moment. So I have just looking at my own self, right? So I have on Facebook a business page. I have a free group. I have a paid group. I have my personal page. And then Instagram is pretty much just a business page. Mm-hmm. And somehow now for my personal page, when I post a reel or something, it ends up on my Instagram. I don't know how, but those get more views, like me playing with a new puppy that we got, or my kid giving him a high five or teaching him to roll over, gets more views than me being the genius that I am trying to spread my knowledge.
Sure.
What advice do you have for a guy like me? Like, because I have the business page is separated pretty much from my personal. So my personal one, I'm running this morning at 5 a.m. I'm like taking myself, a video and posting that to story, like, let's go have a good day. Should I also be doing that on my business page?
Yeah. So we kind of need to look at these ecosystems as the same ecosystem. And what I mean by that is a lot of the times we make a massive mistake of having, let's say, okay, Eric, the human being over here who has a puppy and an infant, okay? And then Eric, the business person over here, when in reality, they're the same thing. Your sentiment that you just shared with me, people actually care more about the puppy than they do the business, is the reality of the world I live in every single day, right? We have to focus day in and day out that people want to connect with you personally versus necessarily the business, right? So Eric, answer this for me in one sentence. Don't overthink this, right? I'm not holding you to this, but like in one sentence, what do you do for a living?
Help people live free emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Great. Are you the only person on earth that does that?
No.
Great. Are there probably hundreds of thousands of people who say they do something similar?
Probably.
Okay. Does the fact that you do that make you special? No. Does your approach and it being you make you special? Absolutely. Right. Yeah. There's only one Eric with Eric's methodology and the system and tools and process and your lens and your experience and your history that paints the picture of your business. So if we're only focused on let me let you live a freer and, better life, that doesn't separate you. Mm-hmm. I need to better understand who is this person that's going to be teaching me this. It's the dad, it's the pet owner, it's the brother, it's the fitness enthusiast, it's the early riser, it's the grinder. You know what I mean? Like the person who gets up and grinds, right? Ultimately, like that is what I want to see. And that's what I need to see to know, like, and trust you in order to do business.
Man, that is, you didn't tell me anything new.
Of course not.
Not to take away from the big aha moment that I'm having right now. I just want to let you know that like what we know and what we do are so far apart sometimes, aren't they? Wow. Okay. What recommendations would you have for entrepreneurs who don't have a big budget, who want to start growing their brands? What can they do?
Yeah. So the first thing, and the majority of this is completely free, right? The first thing that we have to do is understand who we are and what our brand is, right? For you, you were able to summarize this, and I knew you would in one sentence. The majority of entrepreneurs can't do that. What do you do? Right. From there, I need to understand the lens in which you do that. So, for example, one of my former clients, John Ledger, former CEO of T-Mobile. Okay. What did he do? He ran a company that sold telephones and telephone service. Does that make him special? No. There are not a million. There are like a dozen other people who do this and do it really, really well. And when he took over T-Mobile, far more successfully at that. Okay. What I want to stress is that John, being this eccentric, irreverent CEO with magenta hair who made a career by trash talking Verizon and AT&T, actually drove sales by making the brand cool again. Similarly to what Richard Branson did with the Virgin Empire, right? Ultimately, what I would say is first understanding who you are and what you stand for. Someone like John Ledger is incredibly unapologetic. If you don't want to work for someone with magenta hair who's going to ride a Segway around the office, then you don't want to work at T-Mobile, right? But we know who he is and we know what he stands for. From there, what's really, really important is to understand the lens in which we tell this story. For me, I'm wildly, if you can't tell, energetic, enthusiastic, and unapologetic. Like this is who you get no matter what time of day, no matter if you want it or not. Like this is just who I am, right? And then parlaying that into my strategy. From there, the number one thing that I work with every single person I work with, first and foremost, beyond anything else, is the digital ecosystem. Keep in mind, there are, like I said, I could find right now on Google 15 providers who, quote unquote, do what you do, Eric. However, before I choose a provider, I'm going to see and research the person that I'm spending time with and entrusting my business to. So whenever I Google your first and last name, no matter who you are, we need to ensure, no matter how good you think you are, no matter how much money you think you make, no matter how awesome you think you are, you need to be able to look at your Google search results and say, regardless of my opinion about myself, this is what blind consumers who have never met me a day in their life is going to see or are going to see. And what I mean by that is these sites like Instagram or LinkedIn are highly searchable and indexable. If you haven't been on Instagram or LinkedIn in 3 years, and that's the first website that pops up for you because they pay millions of dollars a month to ensure that it is outdated, we have to ensure that if your LinkedIn, if your Instagram is outdated, right? And we see that it says you're a grocery store manager from 15 years ago. True story. I had a real estate agent whose LinkedIn was so outdated, it said she worked at a very store. All the power to her. I love it. I was a busboy. I was a waiter. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But who wants to entrust their business to the grocery store manager, right? It's just a different skill set. We have to take that at face value. You are dropping so many potential clients on the ground before they even reach you. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that ecosystem is set up. That's your Facebook, that's your Instagram, that's your LinkedIn, because it comes into search results. From there, any of these like third-party online profiles, like especially with real estate agents, you have like Realtor.com and Zillow, right? For entrepreneurs, you have all of these other third-party sites. We have to make sure that those are updated and they look like you're real, right? It takes on average 7 to 12 positive touch points for a consumer to transact with you. It takes 1 negative for them not to. So why would we ever let a third-party provider control the narrative when we have the ability to? And that leads me to the final portion, which is personal website. No matter who you are, if you are an entry-level provider at a large conglomerate or you're a tech CEO, you need to have a personal website. And I know this sounds crazy, but even when you're trying to do business or get a promotion or transfer to a new team as an entry-level provider, a lot of the times these managers who may not know you are Googling you, finding your LinkedIn, finding your website, right? And what does that say about you? Oh, you're the real deal. Is that true or not? That's up for debate. It doesn't matter. We talk about my golden rule in marketing is that user perception is truth. What they perceive about you is their reality, and that's all that matters. So our ability to control perception and control narrative legally and truthfully is what's most important.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's really, really good. Did you, is there like a book that you've read that was a big aha moment for you when it comes to marketing?
Yeah. So ironically, not when it comes to marketing, but it was a major aha moment and life-shifting moment that has affected my business positively beyond words. It's called You're a Badass. It is a very popular standard self-help book written by an incredible author named Jen Sincero. It came into my life at a time I needed it. It changed my life, specifically in my ability to work past what she calls like the noise or, your day-to-day bullshit, right? Instead, focusing on how we have an unprecedented ability to affect change in our lives and our business, right? And funnily enough, it really became like my doctrine in terms of how I run my life and how I run business, to the point of like, I buy it for anyone who will listen, right? And so that's really, really important to me. You Are a Badass changed my life, and I'm low-key obsessed with her.
Yellow cover, yeah?
Yeah, yellow cover, that's right.
I know exactly what the book looks like. At one point, every person, well, every woman that I knew was reading that book.
Yep. It was every woman in Tyler, and let me tell you, it changed my life.
Every woman in Tyler was reading that book.
Unapologetically.
And you took it and ran with it, so that's good.
Yeah.
How do you measure success of somebody's personal brand strategy?
Well, everyone has different KPIs and different goals. So that's a really hard question to answer. The majority of my clients come to me wanting to make more money. That's an easy litmus test. We either made more money or we didn't. And we attribute those money-making activities to your personal brand. Okay. Social. How much money did we drive from social, or even like brand awareness this month, this year, right? That's really helpful. From there, what we really stress are like, what are the individual's goals? Some people just want to grow their followers, right? I always steer them away from that goal, because followers are arbitrary, and you could have 1 million followers and 0 customers, which means you're broke and live under a bridge. You have 100 people who follow you and give you $100,000 a year. And guess what? You're a multi-millionaire living in Bora Bora, right? So ultimately, what I want to focus on is client to client. Ultimately, the money-making portion is the easiest to track. And I have a really, really good track record with my clients, specifically their ability to produce and sell more year over year, because ultimately we're ensuring efficacy of their system, right? If they don't have a strong back-end system that is allowing for leads to go all the way from, let's say, concept to completion, if they don't have, that CRM, if they don't have a strong social presence, there are inevitably clients, customers that are hitting the ground every single day because they're getting turned off, whether it's the ecosystem isn't strong enough, or they don't feel like a real provider, or they don't feel like they're the right fit for them, right? That's really, really important.
Got it. When you say realtors, I guess you're working with brokers, but can you walk me through like a process of like if there's a realtor that's listening right now and they, their entire social presence is doing a live video as they're walking through a house.
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like to work with you if they said, you know what, Tyler sounds like he knows some stuff, expert in real estate. I need his help.
Yeah, absolutely. So not to belabor the point, the first thing we'll always do is talk about the digital ecosystem. We have to have the website. We have to have our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn profile set up, all of those third-party profiles, Zillow, Redfin, those type of organizations.
Does your team set that up for them or you tell them what to go do?
We have two different modalities working. I own a marketing agency, Henry Street Creative, which we talked about earlier. They do all of like the branded assets if my clients want to utilize it. So think visual identity, logo, copywriting, website development, social media content, graphic design, all of those business building marketing agency functions. But what I do day in and day out is I sit in this chair at this desk and I talk one-on-one with owners, founders, brokers, business leaders, and I make sure that their systems and processes are getting into a place that produces results efficiently, right? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, we will walk through their need to do all of these things. I will walk them through how to do it. I'm not the executor and the person who actually does it. I have resources if that's what they need, but I make sure that they're really, really confident and comfortable in their ability to do it. Right. So from there, what I want to stress is we then go to once the ecosystem is built, I'll say that typically takes for most people 60 to 90 days. From there, we actually start talking about outbound lead generation tactics. So for example, number one, if they're just giving me a walk and talk through a home, my question then to them is like, who cares? Truthfully, and we actually have to think about it. The reality is no one cares about your listing in Tyler, Texas, because no one's actively looking for homes in Tyler, Texas. They're here to follow you. And consequently, you're never going to sell that home by walking me through it. Instead, you're going to show other sellers how you walk people through homes. So ultimately, the traditional way of marketing, especially in real estate, is so antiquated and is such in line with the status quo that half of my job is just having people rethink, like, why are we doing this? Oh, because the other agent did it. Well, that doesn't really make sense why that happens, right? So that's really, really important to finesse and focus on.
There's a joke. I got to share it with you.
Yeah.
Mom and her daughter are in the kitchen. They're about to make their Thanksgiving like ham or whatever. And the mom cuts off two ends of it and puts it in the oven. The daughter says, Mom, why did you do that? She's like, I don't know. My mom used to do that. Why don't you call Grandma and ask her? She calls Grandma. She's like, Grandma, let's pretend this grandma's kind of young. She's like, Grandma, why did you guys do that? She's like, well, my mom used to do that when we would cook together. Why don't we call great grandma and ask her? So she calls the great grandma. She said, why do you cut off the ends of the ham? She says, well, we never had a pot that was big enough to fit the full.
You're like, sometimes we just do things because we think that's the way we should do them. And I think that's one of the most like toxic words in business. Should. I always tell my clients whenever they say, oh, well, that's what I should be doing. I stop them and I said, says who? Where's the rule book? Where's the playbook? That doesn't mean anything, right? So we really have to level set and ensure that what we're doing is correct and the most efficient, not what we think we should be doing for X, Y, and Z reason.
Yeah. Tyler, I've had a blast with you on this episode. Is there anything that I did not ask that you were really hoping I would?
No, I mean, like, look, you do this for a living. You knew exactly what to ask. You know, the thing that I would say is, you know, I've built my career and built my business on one guiding philosophy. And it's the fact that lighting someone else's candle doesn't extinguish my own. I firmly believe that by helping someone, by spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes with them, and if that pushes them in the right direction for their business, not even changes their life dramatically, but pushes them in the right direction, reduces overwhelm potentially, it's time well spent. So I give everyone who listens to podcasts like these a completely free, non-sales focused offer. If you want, visit my website, tylergmount.com, sign up for a free audit. You're going to get that audit one-on-one privately with me. I'll walk you through the digital ecosystem. I'll point you in the right direction. We can obviously talk about ongoing work together, but like that's not my goal. It's really to point you in the right direction and see, you know, a change in your business and potentially and hopefully reduce overwhelm.
That's awesome, Tyler. You've added tremendous value to me. I'm thinking about my digital ecosystem slightly different. And hey, if this was valuable to you, join the Relentless Goal Achievers Facebook community. It's a free group, and you can connect, chat, and grow together. All right, guys, have an awesome one. Tyler, thank you so much for being here, my friend. It was great to meet you.
Thanks so much, Eric.